What's good, y'all? It's your man Sight, and today we're talking about new competition for the Akai Standalone's Maschine Plus. Ooh, things are starting to heat up. Let's get into it. Let's get busy. Welcome back. Once again, my name's Sight, and I make videos about creating dope content using the MPC, as well as other tools for producers and content creators. So if you like this video, make sure you hit the like down below, drop me a comment, let me know what you think about the topic. And if you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing. So let's talk about this new situation going on here with the Maschine Standalone unit, which looks like it's tentatively being called Maschine Plus, and how that affects the landscape of the sampling, groove box, pad pressing, finger drumming, let's call it the standalone beat making community. Now, as most of you guys know, I'm a huge MPC advocate, connoisseur, enthusiast. I even have a whole MPC gang over on Facebook, and the MPC platform has sentimental value for me just because of the time that I got it when I was young and kind of how it kicked off my path as a creative and as a producer back in the 90s. So it has a huge sentimental value to me. But believe it or not, I was not always MPC gang. There was a time where competition took me off the platform. Some of you guys know about the Roland MV series, and at that time, Roland was a very competitive entity within the production game and the standalone, and they had really competitive stuff, especially their MV 8000 when it launched. Now, this dropped actually before the 4000, and to this day, had I not had to sell it for personal reasons, I might still be MV gang.
This is blasphemy. This is madness. This is Sparta!
But for one reason or another, things turned out the way they did. I ended up back on the MPC platform, but for full disclosure, I've never received any type of compensation or any type of partnership with Akai. Basically, what I do is completely out of the love for the products themselves and as an enthusiast. So I've never been like an official ambassador or anything like that. They've never reached out to me in that capacity in any way. So when I talk about production gear, I'm always doing it based on my personal experience and what I enjoy the most. I'm definitely not a stranger to other production methods. I'm a longtime Reason user, but when it comes to standalone products, other than the MV, which was about a 6-year period of my producing career, I definitely had MPCs for that whole time. So what does someone who's used MPCs for the better part of 20 years think about the new Maschine Standalone? It's pretty dope, but I'm excited about it for a couple reasons. Reason number one, competition is always great for the consumer. Anytime you have a competing product entering the market and a serious competitor, there are other things like the Electron units, and I guess you can kind of call the SP series a competitor, but realistically, as far as a full featured production station and a standalone footprint, there's not really much on the market that's competed with the MPCs, and they've been kind of free to reign for the last few years. The problem with that, when there's no serious competitors in the market, it turns into a monopoly and it kind of stagnates innovation. For the past 7 years since I started using MPC software, which translated into the MPC firmware, I've had some pretty serious complaints about the things that I don't like about it. Without getting too deep into that, what I think is going to happen with this new Maschine unit is it's going to push Akai into innovating more. Innovation and competition always leads to better things for us, the consumers. People who are actually buying these units, spending their hard-earned money on it. I'll be honest with you, I don't have any loyalty to any of them, and you shouldn't either. At the end of the day, we should be supporting the products that give us the best bang for our buck with our money. Blind loyalty doesn't help anybody out. So while it's fun to take little jabs at Native Instruments and Maschine users, at the same time, I do want that platform to do well, because anytime you have innovation on one platform, you're gonna get it on another one that's competing. So let's look at the new Maschine Plus and see what's included with it, and see what kind of takeaways we can come away with just by looking at the specs. All right, so let's look at what we got here. This is the website that dropped it and kind of released it early. It looks like it's called Vintage King. They're not the most known company. They're kind of like under the radar. I see their ads and stuff, so they're definitely doing ad spend. I've never ordered anything from them directly, so I don't really know how legit they are. But the website does look legit. I mean, it doesn't look like a hack website they just threw up. And for all intents and purposes, I think this is probably going to be pretty accurate. And it's not going to be hard to beat MPCs as far as specs. I mean, they kind of went light on things like the processor. It's not the strongest processor in the world, and they definitely went light on RAM. There's only about 2 gigs of RAM in the MPC, and that really limits it as far as how many plugins and things like that can run at the same time. So you got your 2 kind of light plugins that are in the MPC, but chances are, knowing Native Instruments, they're going to have a lot more as far as plugins and onboard instruments. So that's already going to be an advantage. But let's go ahead and look at it. It's talking about here, it's going to be about $13.99, so about $1,400. I don't see any indication that it's gonna have a battery. So, you know, when we look at features here, anodized aluminum design for years on the road. It looks like there's a video here, so we can watch that as well. Let's just look at the specs really quick. Let me see, Wi-Fi link enabled, quad-core processor, 4 gigs of dual channel RAM, and 32 gigs flash storage. That's pretty good. But, you know, it's just factory content, as it says. But, you know, if you're talking about synthesizers, you know, especially if it's like a light version of different synthesizers, 32 gigs is plenty to carry, you know, some soft synths in there. You can knock a soft synth down, you know, depending on if it's not using like heavy samples. I mean, you can knock those down to like a gig. So, I mean, you can fit a lot in 32 gigs of flash storage. 2 color displays. Now, it doesn't look like it's a touch screen, so that's going to be a disadvantage. 64 gig SD card included. That's pretty standard. I mean, I use a 128 in my Live 2, so you can fit a fair amount of storage with 64 gigs. That's cool that they include a card, but you know, you can get, I think, up to a terabyte SD card now, maybe even more. So 64 gigs is I guess you can call it bare minimum, but you can fit a whole lot on there. Included software. This is going to be the interesting part. All right. Instruments, FM8, Massive, Monarch, Prism, Reactor, Factory Selection R2, Contact Factory Selection, Retro Machines. So you're talking about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 different instruments coming with it. Now, this is pretty dope because, you know, if you look at the MPCs, one of the issues I have with them is I do like the bassline plugin, I do like the tube synth plugin, but they actually don't come with a lot of patches, so there's not a whole lot of selection. That's an area I think they really skimped on. They really could have avoided this being a more major competitor had they filled out those software synths with different patches. A lot of us who use the MPCs, the standalones, we really want to use these synthesizers more, but they just don't have enough patches. I haven't counted, but it's really just not a lot to work with. So it's cool that this is going to come with a whole bunch of onboard synths, and even if they're kind of like light versions of them, they're going to have way more sounds than the MPC, more than likely. So this is pretty dope. I like that it comes with so many VSTs, quote unquote, inside of it. That's dope. Standalone mode, you can use your Maschine Plus without a computer, but you'll need a wireless internet connection and your native ID to get set up. Okay, no big deal. So I think that's dope. However, if you look at the performance and what you get per dollar, at $13.99, this is going to put it more expensive than the MPC Live. Now, mind you, the Live now has a speaker, the Live 2, which some people think is overrated. I don't. I love it. But it is a feature nonetheless. It also has a battery, which allows you to use it without being plugged in. Major upside. And it's only $1,200. So for something to come without a battery and without the speaker, this is going to put it more along the path of the MPC One as far as capabilities, as far as how far you can take it away from your computer. So if you're competing with the MPC One, you're talking about $1,400 for something that doesn't have a touchscreen versus something that has a full touchscreen for $700. So why would someone pay twice as much for something with less features? That's one part that I think is going to be a major mistake for Native Instruments. They're probably going to have to drop this down. And honestly, it's probably going to have to be less than Live. If they don't get this down to like $1,100, I really can't see it being a main competitor. But if you're a Maschine user, diehard, and it's something you've been looking forward to, of course you're going to get those diehard fans who want something like this. But it's really hard to call this portable. I mean, if it doesn't have a battery, you're kind of going backwards from where the Mark III is, where you can just plug the USB cable into your laptop. Now you're going to need a separate power source. And it's cool that a lot of guys are using like small battery solutions, like portable batteries. But I'll tell you from experience, I'm used to carrying a lot of equipment around with my camera when I was a video director. And I'm going to tell you, every piece of gear that you add into your kit adds to a couple things. One, it adds to the possibility of damage. Two, it adds to the possibility of losing something. Very easy to lose cables, very easy to lose a battery pack if you're just, you know, picking up your laptop and picking up your machine and trying to put everything in a bag. It's a pain. And that was one of the main arguments I had with the MPC Live 2 and why I like the onboard speaker so much. It's because the speaker eliminates one more thing I have to carry in my bag. If I had to carry like a little Beats pill or something like that, one more thing I have to lose, one more thing I have to charge. Going back to this machine, you're still gonna run into that issue. So aside from that, aesthetically, I think it looks really dope. I do like the new kind of color scheme they have here. And yeah, it looks pretty fire. I can't even front, man. All right, let's look at the IO. It looks like line out, left and right, input gain, mic in, line 2, line 1 and 2, MIDI in and out. It's got a pedal, 2 USB. I wonder if these are gonna be USB 2 or USB 3. It's probably gonna be USB 3 if they have any sense. But looks like a full-size headphone port. That's cool. Headphone volume, line out volume. Now, one thing I'll honestly tell you about the Live 2 that I like as well is the volume knob is on the top, and I like that a lot. Reaching around to the backside, pause, is really not my favorite thing to do. I guess you can get used to these, line out volume. But if I remember correctly, this looks like a Mark III. So that's not a big change. So it looks like they just added a processor to the Maschine Mark III, and it looks like they just added a different faceplate on it, which looks really cool. So as far as aesthetics, you know, I definitely like it. I think it's a cool look. I always like the brushed metal kind of look on different equipment. Definitely like the billet knobs, the billet look on the knobs. So yeah, it's cool. Let's take a look at the video while we have it up and see what we think. All right, this thing looks like it's like 12 minutes, so I'm not gonna watch the whole thing. All right, so let me just show you one thing that I noticed while watching the video.
Events.
This is gonna be a major disadvantage as well. The event screen, right? So you're gonna have to basically go in these little blocks and hit these left and right arrows to go to different areas, right? And then you'll see, let me turn it down a little bit.
Here you can get into the nitty-gritty details on.
All right, so he's tapping this right arrow to go to the notes that he wants. I'm gonna tell you right now, if you have 30-second hats or whatever, 30-second triplets, and this is gonna be a pain in the ass. This is gonna be a complete pain in the ass. Trying to go to each individual note. And this is where I'm seeing a major disadvantage as far as piano roll editing. Not like it's a whole lot of fun on the Live, but bruh, it's a lot more fun than this. Using your finger and being able to drag sections of notes. Even though you have to go to the bottom of the screen and hit tab and move stuff, I would not look forward to this little ass screen at all. Like, I mean, this is not it, bro. Honestly, charging $1,400 for something with no battery, no touchscreen, no onboard speaker. Okay, let's take the speaker away if you hate the speaker, right? But no touchscreen and no touch capacity, no battery. Come on, bro. It's a little bit arrogant. It's really freaking arrogant, yo. Hey, let's look back at the rear panel. Bruh, no CV gates. I'm not an analog guy, but if you're gonna advertise its control capabilities as a standalone device, man, this isn't even competing with the One when it comes to the CV gates. So that's another disadvantage. I'm gonna be honest with you, man. They're really staking a lot on their software. And I get that to a certain extent, but a lot of guys are getting into hardware to get away from the DAW. And a lot of guys are getting into it to control their outboard gear with no CV gates. Bruh, you're shooting yourself in the foot. I don't get it. I don't get how you can charge $1,400 for what is more of a competitor to the MPC One. They're expecting people to pay double the price of an MPC One for the included synthesizers. And I just don't know if that's it, man. I just don't know if that's going to do it for them. I like to see innovation. I like to see competition, but I don't know if this really competes. I don't really know if it competes in a realistic way, because if you're not going to have CV gates on there to control outboard gear, which is a huge selling point for the One, and the Live 2, I just don't know how you can charge that amount. I don't know how you can charge more than the Live 2, and it has significantly less features. I mean, not having a touchscreen is a big deal, man. I mean, you got this scribble strip, right? But on the Live, you can turn any parameter into a scribble strip on the screen. I mean, you have the touch screen capability to do that same type of, MIDI parameter changes. You can create virtual faders on the screen very easily. It's not like you have to set it to program. You just basically tap the parameters. All right, so here we go. Now on the Live or on any of the touchscreen, the modern MPC units, you can basically turn any MIDI parameter into a scribble strip or whatever you want to call that just by tapping on it. So menu, program, edit, right? Boom, pan, double tap it. Now I'm panning, right? MIDI CC15, whatever that is. Now I'm controlling MIDI CC15 on the screen. All right. Portamento, glide, boom. I'm controlling my portamento glide on the screen. So being that all these parameters are here and easily assigned as quick as double tapping, you know, to change something, I just don't see how one scribble strip is going to compete with that. So when I say the touchscreen is a major advantage, that's what I'm talking about. I mean, obviously navigating can be a lot faster as well. The Maschine does have a lot of dedicated buttons, which is dope. And that brought a lot of people over to the One. So I'm not diminishing or the desire for dedicated buttons. That is cool. There is a crowd who really, really loves dedicated buttons. But not being able to do stuff like, you know, I could just kind of pencil draw in some notes here, but not being able to do something like this where it's just, you know, click the pencil tool and draw in some notes. That's something we're all used to coming from a DAW and that the MPC is easily capable of. And we can't act like that's not a major feature. So I think by not integrating a touchscreen, they really shot themselves in the foot. This price point, I think they really shot themselves in the foot. And not having CV gates, they also shot themselves in the foot. So these cats got 3 holes in their feet right now.
All right now, you wise guy. Dance!
Yosemite Sam had asked. So getting down to it, I'm excited to have some competition in the market, but I am a little disappointed in Native Instruments. Not because I'm like a fan of theirs or anything, but because this could be a lot more competitive. It really could put the heat on Akai in a lot more ways. But other than like really hardcore Native Instruments fans, I can't see people switching. So I welcome competition. I'm looking forward to it. I hope this is maybe like one unit out of more that they're gonna drop. Maybe they'll do like a Maschine Plus Touch. But I'm not gonna lie, I woke up pretty excited about the news, and now it's kind of taking a little wind out of the sails because they could have competed a lot harder, let's be honest. So let me know what you guys think throughout this breakdown. I'm interested in hearing your guys' feedback. I'm sure I'm gonna get called a fanboy. However, at the same time, you gotta understand, these companies aren't loyal. I have no affiliation with any of these companies. I like my MPC Gang merch, iamsight.com. Make sure you get yours. But at the same time, as much of an enthusiast as I am, I do really want what's best for me as a producer, and I want what's best for us as music producers and creatives. So I always want the best products to come out. I don't like limitation on innovation. I love technology to progress, and I love when companies push each other to progress. And honestly, I really wanted this to push Akai a lot more. Maybe it will on the software side, and that's gonna lead to benefits. And I think there will be benefits for both Akai and Native Instruments users based on these announcements and this new system coming out. However, I think they could have done a lot more, and I'm just gonna leave it at that. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. I'm very interested to hear. So I'm gonna sign off on that note. I'll catch you on the next video. Peace.